Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, that works. Hi. Um, Thank you all for coming today. I think we're in for a real treat. I'm Suzanne Brandenburg. I'm here to welcome our headliner on behalf of the CU Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education and our director, Dr. Freitas, and all of our partners on campus. What's nice about this One Book, One Campus program that inspired us to do this is that it's a true partnership from entities across campus, and we welcome people from across the campus community to participate. And I can't tell you how fortunate I feel we are to have Mr. Jackson here today. He's a grandnephew of she should be a doctor, of Henrietta Lacks. And he's really, I think, an important person to talk to us. He cares deeply about this. He's really focused on education and on helping people understand. And to have somebody who has walked in the shoes and is part of the family is a remarkable good fortune for all of us. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Jackson. Thank you.
All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Well, I'm glad that I'm having the opportunity to be here with you all on today, and even grateful for the opportunity to share in this sacred space. This is a beautiful edifice and stands for a great purpose, and so I always appreciate those opportunities as well. It makes these type of presentations even more heartfelt for me, and so I'm glad to share this space with you all on today. So my name is Jermaine Jackson. I am from Kalamazoo. Did y'all know that there really was a Kalamazoo? There is really a Kalamazoo, and there's even a song written after Kalamazoo. I got a girl in Kalamazoo, zoo, zoo. And she's right over there. This is my beautiful wife, Brianna Jackson. And again, I'm just grateful for the opportunity. Thank you to the campus faculty for having us come to share this very important message. And so I'm going to attempt to, and also to those that are joining us virtual, thank you all for joining us. And I just want everybody to know, if we don't get through all of the Q&A, I am reachable. So my information is up here. You can email me, you can call me, you can go to my Facebook page, you can leave a message on there. So I am just welcome to, open to finish up any other questions that you may have. I know that we're sort of on a tight schedule for today, and so I'm going to share a little bit of the story of my great aunt, Henrietta Lacks. I declare her not just my great aunt, but the future mother of modern medicine. So how this story went for me, I learned about Henrietta Lacks when I was probably about 7 or 8 years old from my grandmother. Both my grandmother, Bessie Lacks, her and Henrietta are married to brothers. And so that is the connection for me. Hopefully we have also time left. I would love for you all to have the opportunity to come and check out some of the art pieces and media stuff. And there's a lot going on in the media, even as we speak with the family. There's some legal things that is happening right now. The family does sit at the ethics table to make decisions over what happened with HeLa cells and what they're used for. And then so there's the family table is over here, and I have artwork throughout this exhibit. My grandmother, who just recently passed away in the last 6 months, I have her information obituary over there, as well as my grandfather. And artwork is just throughout this exhibit as well, and just some information about some things we're doing in our local city, Kalamazoo, some proclamations made by our mayor. Also, what have happened on the national level, there is a Cancer Act that is also on this table that spells out and acknowledges who she is, and that her cells are responsible for any and all cancer research worldwide. And so how this story really started off for me, I'm gonna tell a HeLa story. That's what I call it, a HeLa story. So this is my grandmother, Bessie Lacks. and she is standing with her nephew, David Sonny Lacks. This was Henrietta's son. They are both now deceased. My grandmother, again, shared the story with me from a little kid. And this is the way she told me. She said, my sister-in-law, she has sales all over the world. And I'm 7 or 8. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. Wonderful, Granny. And, you know, my sister-in-law, her sales are even outer space. Can you believe that? Nope. That's a hard one to believe. I'm like, Granny, did you take your medicine? What is going on? Because she's telling me an unbelievable story that I just had a hard time at that young age trying to fathom, right? And so they come full circle because I worked in the Kalamazoo Public Library system for 20 plus years. And she called me one day. She says, hey, I want you to reserve this book for me. There's a book coming out by my sister-in-law. It's called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. I said, okay. And so I remember, and I actually processed all the new books at the time. So it came to my desk first. And I remember when the book came out, and I sat there probably for like a good several hours, just kind of looking through the book and starting to try to piece some of the things together that my grandmother was telling me when I was a little kid. And I'm like, okay, so she wasn't making this up after all. And so that's sort of what happened there. I will say that on this picture here, they were at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo. This was back in like 2011. No, the book dropped in 2010. This was within that year. Rebecca Skloot came to do a speech there on the campus, and the family was coming along with her. My grandmother hadn't seen them in about, at that time, probably like 25 years, because my grandfather had passed probably like 26 years ago. And so she hadn't seen them since. And so this was going to be like a reunion. So she took a picture of her and her husband, and they had a Q&A basket that was going around the room, and she dropped her picture in the basket. And so once they got up to the stage and they seen their Uncle Sonny, they started standing up like, okay, we have family members here. And so that's kind of the story behind that particular picture there. And again, the thing that stayed on my mind, my sister's sales are all over the world. And I didn't understand what that meant exactly, but now I understand, and we all understand. So Henrietta Lacks, she grew up in Roanoke, West Virginia, with her family in a cabin. And this cabin, what was sort of unique about this cabin is that this belonged to her great-grandfather, who was also a slave master. And that was Mr. Lacks. So that is where the Lacks name comes from. It comes from her great-grandfather, who was one that had slaves in that very, in the cabin where she actually grew up in. And so her birth name was Loretta Peasant. And even stuff like that, my grandmother, she was in one of the presentations like this with me, and she kept saying Loretta, and people were like, who's she talking about? And so that was Henrietta's birth name, Loretta Peasant. And many of you may or may not know, just like Deborah, her daughter, would experience losing her mom at a young age of like 4. Henrietta also lost her mother around 3 or 4 years old as well. So she grew up down in Roanoke, West Virginia, and they were poor. They didn't have any money. They grew up on a tobacco farm. So that is what was sort of the family business at the time. And so during the 40s, 50s, we know this was not a very pleasant time or privileged time for African Americans during that time period. We know this was a great time of segregation in our country, and it certainly was major challenges medically for Blacks during that time, to the degree that most hospitals in the country would not receive Black patients into their hospitals. Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Maryland was one of the rare exceptions that had a ward that was dedicated to Black patients. And this is where Henrietta Lacks will find herself in the Johns Hopkins Hospital, deathly ill, coming there in excruciating pain, a lot of abdominal pain, hemorrhaging, and they didn't know exactly what was wrong with her. It wasn't known right away that it was cervical cancer, as it has been proven today to be, but they did take samples from both of her cervix, left side, right side of her cervix, a cancerous sample and a non-cancerous sample. And of course, they would discover the cancerous cell would stay alive. I had an opportunity to actually talk to a doctor from Western Michigan Medical College by the name of Dr. Tom Rothstein, who worked with HeLa cells closely, who also happened to went to school with the daughter of the nurse that retrieved the cells. Yeah. And so he went to a class reunion and kind of had a conversation with his daughter to see, like, what did she remember about that time and what she remembered from her mother. You actually can look up that clip. This was during the pandemic. If you look at Western Michigan University on YouTube, the Western Michigan Med School, look up Dr. Tom Rothstein and the Henrietta Lacks conversation, or Jermaine Jackson at Western Med, and you will see the YouTube video. And he has a conversation about his experience with working with HeLa cells, as well as the conversation he had with the daughter of this nurse. And so it made for a good presentation, you know, me talking about family, him talking about medicine. And so one of the things that was unique, of course, is that so she was not even conscious. She didn't even know what was happening to her body. And they actually did this, you know, took these samples without any anesthesia. And so there was no just regard for humanity, I would say, at that point. And we know eventually she passes away. The family has no knowledge of that any of this was done. And I will say that this was an ethics issue during that time. There was no standards for any of us. It didn't matter what color you were, no matter your gender, it didn't matter. But I do think it's important to highlight this was a Black woman in the segregated 50s, which made it even that much worse to that degree. Because some people just tend to just think, well, it was for all of us. You know, none of us, they all lacked any ethics for any of us. But it was even worse for African Americans at that time. And so it wasn't until like 20 years later, so it was like, matter of fact, I think the year I was born, it was like 1976, when the files were kind of exposed and they showed up at the family's house. And now they're not showing up to like wrong their rights and to say what happened. They was really doing it because they wanted to see, was this a gold mine? You know, was there something in the bloodline in the family where the cells just stayed alive? So there were blood samples taken from family members. And of course, there was nothing unique about anyone else's blood cells in the family. It was something unique to Henrietta Lacks. And of course, one of the common questions that always come up in settings like this, and some of you, of course, are already in the medical field and may already know the answer to this, but people ask, has there been any discovery of any other human immortal cell lines? And the answer is yes. There have been discovery of other human immortal cell lines, but I was venture to say none as unique as this one. This is the largest human cell line in the world. It is the go-to that medical scientists use all over the world. It is the one that they keep in the arsenal. It's the one it's easy to work with, to manipulate. You know, hey, let's just pull some HeLa cells out the freezer and let's get to work. And it gives us the answer that we're looking for. And so it is the most used and it is the largest. And when we say large, we mean like wrapping around the earth 3 times large. When we say large, we mean it is equivalent to 100 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other's large in the weight. And so it is a very massive cell line that has been grown. There is a timeline up here that sort of gives a breakdown of some of the breakthroughs and the family sitting at the ethics table and making decisions and even some discrepancies. All that stuff is on that banner there. And we know that the polio vaccine was the first vaccine that was the first medical breakthrough that they were able to get using HeLa cells. What is unique about the timeline of her dying in 1951 and them getting a vaccine that successfully worked for polio, there's a couple of unique things about this. The first unique thing about this is that this research was done at a very familiar place. This was at, it is kind of leaving my mind for the moment, Tuskegee University. And I think a lot of us know what happened at Tuskegee University before. And so this research with HeLa cells were also taking place at the same university. And so I thought that was important to know. Also, I had a friend of mine who worked in the graveyard. He's an undertaker, and he came to my exhibit. He was reading that timeline, and a light bulb went on. He says, "Oh my goodness." I said, "What?" He says, "The time of your aunt's death and the polio breakthrough, the vaccine," he says, "we have a plot dedicated to people that died of polio in their graveyard." And he says that number dropped off significantly after the breakthrough with the vaccine. And so he was able to align the work that he does and look at this exhibit and see the timeline to see that her cells made the world of difference in saving millions of Americans in that respect. Now, I'd like to go around the room at this time just to kind of get us all involved and engaged so we can understand the depths that we won't really fully understand even in this room today. But I'm going to ask a list of questions, and you're welcome to participate or not. But if you want to participate, just show by the raising of your hands when I ask the question. How many of us have family members or friends that are cancer survivors? Like in most rooms, majority of the hands go up. How many of us have had a headache and took a Tylenol? How many of us have had an allergic reaction and took a Benadryl? So we can just see just from that show of hands how we all are impacted by HeLa cells, because HeLa cells are to be accredited for all of those things that are just named. Both my grandmother, who was a cancer survivor, she actually didn't die of cancer. She died of other complications, but she was a cancer survivor. My mother is a living breast cancer survivor on today. And thanks to the breakthrough of HeLa cells through this woman's cells, Henrietta Lacks. And the reason why I even birthed this exhibit was it was only meant to be for one time. And at my workplace, I was in charge of an art gallery at the library, so I curated this. It wasn't this big either at the time, but there were so many people that came through. I mean, there was doctors, ethic teams, and physics students, and I was like, I didn't even know what I was tapping into. Like, why are these people coming? And people just kept coming. And so, but then I realized also that many people that worked in the medical field, they worked with HeLa cells all the time, but they knew nothing about the woman behind the HeLa cells. And so I thought it was important as a family member to uphold the legacy of my aunt, because before we could talk about science, she was a woman, she was a Black woman, she was a mother, she was a daughter, she was an auntie, she was a friend, she was a human. And so I know oftentimes if we're not careful, it can become very dehumanizing conversation when we talk about science, medical science. And so I wanted to bring the humanity back into the conversation, acknowledging the greatness of this woman's cells and what it has been able to produce. And so a lot of things have happened since then. And one of those things that there are now 3 statues in the world This was the first one, and this is actually in the UK at Bristol University. So yeah, it didn't happen here. It happened in the UK. Don't know exactly how that happened, but that's what happened. And they flew the family out to do the unveiling. And so there, I don't know if I bought that picture or not. There's a picture of all the family members. Yes, it's on the table over here. All the family members watching the unveiling of this statue. Then there was also two recently, and both were, I believe, in the West Virginia area. And so that's the second one, and the first in the United States. And this is the most recent one, the third one. This just happened actually the latter part of last year. And this is some of the family members. That is Alfred. Alfred is the son of Deborah Lacks. And so this is Alfred there at the celebration of the unveiling of the third, but second in United States statue of his grandmother. There's also a high school that was named after Henrietta Lacks, and this is in Vancouver, Washington. A group of young people came together and met with the powers that be, and they fought for their school name to be changed. And they were like, no, we don't want it to be HeLa High. We don't want it after ourselves. We want it after her. We want it to be Henrietta Lacks. And so this is the Henrietta Lacks High School. And so the focus, of course, is on medical research. It's a beautiful school. Inside, I don't think I didn't even get any pictures on this slide. Sorry, that's a bad picture. But on this slide about in the inside of the school, because it has like these mock hospital rooms, has a mock pharmacy. It's really, really, really nice. And I think only about 400 kids can get into the school every year. So there's a waiting list for students to get into that school. I've talked to the staff there. So the plan is for us, like we're here today, to get the exhibit out there. And I want to meet the kids who have now graduated, who fought to get that school name changed. I thought that was great. We also have a play that we have written, and it's called A HeLa Story. So this is a combination of some local actors and actresses in our local community there, college students. Some actually are in the medical field. The young lady in the red, Zena Miller, she played my aunt, and I'm going to tell you, that young lady, and I'm sorry this picture's terrible, but she embodied Henrietta. I mean, it was amazing what she was able to do in playing her. And so that is my story, a snippet of my story, because I wanted to leave room for questions that you may have and those that may have questions virtually. And so again, I'm grateful for the opportunity to travel and to share whoever will have me. I mean, like I said, I've talked to medical teams, I've talked to ethic teams, talked to elementary kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and I've been invited to synagogues, and I have shared this information there as well. And so I think it is a story that is worthy to be shared for generations to come. I think that as the world changes, it is important that we fight to keep these type of stories alive. Yes, it is American history. Yes, it is Black history. Yes, it is important history that we all are able to benefit from. And so I will continue to share her story. I will continue to lift up her name. And though we are, yes, grateful and especially elated for those in the medical field that work with HeLa cells and get the answers that they need, but I'm most grateful that her cells were able to change so many lives, even, in spite of the consent thing not being there, which was just an atrocity. And I should say, this is actually where consent really began to be a conversation, was after the Henrietta Lacks situation happened. that is when they realized we need to have a deeper conversation about accountability in the medical field. And it was based off of the story of Henrietta Lacks and what happened in this story. So some of you may or may not know that the family just recently, within the last year, had a settlement out of court with a pharmaceutical company, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I don't know why it's leaving me. It was we actually have one in Kalamazoo. I can't think of the name of it, but they settled out of court. They were being sued by the family because they were using the cells, making tons and tons of money without any type of legitimate permission. And so they settled out of court rather quickly. And I know as we speak, the family have already filed their second lawsuit against yet another pharmaceutical company. That information have not been shared publicly. It's just been publicly shared in the news that there is a second lawsuit that have been filed. And so I thought it was important to bring that up because a lot of people ask about reparations. Like, well, did the family ever receive anything? Nope. A lot of the family members just died of all type of sicknesses, their own self. Her last living son just died, I think it was last year. And so none of her children are living. And far as the siblings there, my grandmother was actually the last one as the in-law. She was the last one left because Henrietta's been gone. Her husband's been gone for a little while. And my grandfather died about 27 years ago. And my grandmother just recently died. And so he's actually buried in Kalamazoo where we live. The other thing I should share too, because when I'm doing PowerPoints, it makes me trying to stick to the script. And so I forget stuff. And so the other thing I should share too is that what's unique about, so this is not in the book. So my grandfather, his name was, or the name he went by was David Lacks. Now, this is why. Henrietta's husband's name is David Lacks. But my grandfather called himself David Sonny Lacks, just like his brother. So my grandfather was 16 years old when he left home. He migrated north, like many African Americans did during that time to find work. And so because he wasn't young enough to work, he took his brother's identity in order to pose as old enough to work. And his brother had went to the military. So he says, I am David Sonny Lacks. And it got him jobs. So he worked in Michigan at the Fisher Body plant. So he was in the auto industry and for many, many years. And then he retired from a local construction company called Miller and Davis out of Kalamazoo. And so he left home at 16. So when him and my grandmother married, she, I guess, told him that you need to go back home and you need to connect with your family. And so he didn't connect with his family until he was up in age. And so it became their tradition. They traveled every year down to West Virginia and they stayed with the kids. They stayed with his brother, the real David. But when I say he really took on his name, I mean that obituary says David Lacks. But once you read into the detail of the obituary, you will notice that his name was Antonio Lacks. That was his real name. And so, but he lived under that alias for all of his life, the majority of his life, from 16 until he passed away. And so I thought that was pretty unique. And I will say it was not uncommon for African Americans during that time. You know, it was survival. And so many of them did it. So I thought I would share that with you as well. All right. And so I think I didn't leave out anything, I don't believe. I will just say real quickly, was there something I talked about just now that someone wanted further like clarification to? Anyone? All right. Yes.
Yeah, so we'll do questions and answers in 1 second, but can I just start with a
Sure.
mid-talk round of applause?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, not to interrupt the flow, because I know no one wants to hear from me, but I am also going to read out our first 5 book winners in case anybody's here and wants to run up to grab them from Michelle, and then we'll go from there. So Gregory Ottenberg, come on up.
Come on down.
Yeah, you want a car and you want a car. No. Tracy Price Johnson, Marilyn Casman. Wow, fun, right? Ann Canavan. Oh, okay, handwriting. Millicent something Torath.
This is The Price is Right.
Okay. All right. And now we have people with microphones. And so I just want to make sure our Zoom people can hear the questions and your answer. And we're going to take some questions from Zoom. So go ahead, Jeanette.
Hi, thank you so much. You were talking about reparations and, whether the family had been recognized in any way, and you showed those 3 statues. I was curious if Johns Hopkins University has responded in any way or recognized Henrietta Lacks.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because there's a whole bunch that I didn't talk about as far as like recognitions and things that are happening across the country. There's great acknowledgments that are happening. My wife and I were just recently in Baltimore, Maryland. We actually went to the Johns Hopkins Hospital, and we were also on their campus. And there is, and I just talked to my cousin Alfred, and there is a building that they're building. And I thought from the information I had read that it was already existing. So I was there looking for the building. Then I realized the building had not yet, they hadn't even broken ground for the building, but there is like a research building that is being dedicated. Now, when we talk about what you're talking about, reparations or anything like that, not that I'm aware of, but I know that there are some of the family members that are working with the Johns Hopkins Hospital on various projects, some epic stuff, and again, this building that's going to go up in her honor.
Question.
Okay, so we have some great questions coming in on Zoom. Please keep them coming. So the one that came in right away, so I have to ask this because he got it right in at 12:30. If Henrietta was alive today, what do you think that she would say about everything that's happening?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe she'll say science sucked. I don't know. You did something without my permission, But I think she would be grateful and appreciate to know that due to the unfortunate circumstances of the lack of consent that didn't take place during that time, that it now is something that is taken more seriously and, taken into account versus before what happened with her was done. But another reason I'm glad that actually came up because this picture right here is by a artist, Erica Banninger, out of St. Joe, Michigan. This picture is it's a depiction of reimagining a healthy, healed from cancer, Henrietta Lacks, on her way to receive a Nobel Peace Prize for rendering her cells by permission, and surrounded by her husband and her children, and her son is holding the Nobel Peace Prize in his hand. And this was one of the first art pieces that came into my exhibit. This one is dear to me because it speaks volumes. She actually had on an evening gown worn by a former First Lady, Jackie Onassis. She had a white one, but she wanted this one blue. And she's just young and vibrant, looking good, enjoying her family, healed from cancer, and being acknowledged for it. And the reason why this is important because Many of those doctors have received things like Nobel Peace Prizes for the breakthroughs that have happened through HeLa cells. So, yeah.
Yeah, of course. The question was, do I have a question? The answer is, I have a million. Um, I would love to hear further thoughts from you on this kind of bifurcated history. I was in Alabama recently and went to the Tuskegee University Museum, and it is just a remarkable display of exactly what you talked about. There is on the second floor, half of it is dedicated to the polio story, and the other half to the syphilis study in two different rooms right next to each other. And what is so striking about this story, and especially about, I think, how the family has adopted this set of issues, is this ability to navigate pride in what has come from a really horrible circumstance and frankly heinous behavior, right? And yet we have all these benefits that have come from that. And I wonder, how do you think about that combination and the overlap of bad behavior and good outcomes? And I'll just say, by the way, in context here, I direct our Center for Bioethics and Humanities. And the Henrietta Lacks building at Hopkins is also, in addition to housing some research, will house their bioethics center. And some of the bioethicists there were involved in the negotiations with Hopkins to get that built. And they're very proud, of course, of some of the art that's going to be in it and so on. So I think I want to raise some of those ethical, nuances or complications.
Yeah. So I think, and it's just like you're stating, it's kind of a mixed bag, like you want to celebrate the good things, the good outcomes, the medical breakthroughs that have benefited and helped other lives and changed other people's lives. But at the same time, there's this suffering, where there was lack of acknowledgement. And one of the things I personally say, and I'm not speaking like advocating for the family when I say this, but one of the things that I've always said is delayed justice is not justice. Because how many things can happen within a time of a delay of something that looks pretty blatant to us? The answer looks pretty obvious to us, what it needs to be, but because there's a delay, there's a lot of suffering that can go on. And we have seen that happen in many case scenarios, right? Where the delay, many people have suffered. And so I would say that I can acknowledge that the family certainly have celebrated what their mother cells have been able to do. Look at Deborah. This is Deborah. Deborah never really got to meet her mother. She was 4 years old to not really know her. So this was meeting mama in a laboratory. This was meeting mama here, and I know that I can't speak for Deborah. I don't know what her emotions was in that moment. I don't know what she was thinking. I mean, she's maybe smiling because this is the only reflection that she can really feel in the moment that would remind her of her mother. So I don't know how she felt, and I can't speak for that. But I will say that when I had the opportunity for the first time to see HeLa cells under the microscope at a local private college in Kalamazoo, K College, it was chilling. I'm pretty sure my hairs just raised up because it was such a moment. And I was very emotional. It was no one in there but me and another scientist. And I was like, hey, AT, girl, you out here saving lives and stuff. But then of course you always think of the tragic part of the story and how things could have been done better and things should have been done better. And so if I was to venture to try to answer your question, I would say that it's probably a mixture of those emotions, and it's hard to balance because it's probably individual thoughts for the different family members about how they feel about the injustice, having to go after people in court. I mean, that doesn't feel good, but hey, they're doing what they have to do because it's not coming by any other means. So hopefully that answered a little bit of your question.
Okay, so we're going to go back to Zoom, and thank you to the 190 people joining us on Zoom from all over the country, including students and Zoomers. We have about 80 people in the room who are glad that you're here. So this one, I think, is a great question for the younger people who are joining us in the audience. And they're wondering, what should young scientists and health professionals take away from this story?
In the words of Spike Lee, do the right thing. Just do the right thing. I think it is easy if we're not careful to become dehumanizing if it's going to be an immediate breakthrough or takeaway that benefits the here and now, and not think about the lack of integrity that's displaying. And so I think remain integral, do the right thing, follow the proper procedures, challenge the systems when the systems are not right, and be willing to stand up and stand alone.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Dawn Owens Robinson, and I was fortunate to know the Jackson family because I lived in Kalamazoo for 10 years. And so I introduced Jermaine to the leadership because I thought it was important that we all need the information. I'm glad there's 100 people online. One thing I know, because I did a presentation last year to the Mile High Medical Society, Johns Hopkins is building the building. Johns Hopkins has an annual science conference. Johns Hopkins has scholarships that bring children of color from communities to study science on campus. And if you go to their website, there is a statement about an apology. I can't remember the exact words. It's an apology, but back in that day and age, consent wasn't necessary, but we learned. So it meant something to me. I'm a gynecologist, so I deal with HPV every day. So every time I do a pap smear once a week, I think of the story, I think of the book, I think of the trauma she went through. And in the story, they said men lined up around the block to donate blood to her when she was hemorrhaging. That's how good she was to people. She would stop and take care of anyone. This is just a book. I don't know her, but I'm just glad that we were able to get this to come together. And like he said, my answer to the question was do no harm. I practice medicine by the golden rule. I do unto others as I would do to everyone of that age group. And I tell my patients that. They're like, well, why are you saying that? I'm like, because if you were my cousin, so if we live by the golden rule, we can't go wrong.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, another Zoom question. The traveling museum is wonderful. Is there a physical museum for Henrietta Lacks or plans for one?
Museums. This is an interesting topic right now. A very interesting topic to talk about right now. There is no physical museum that I am aware of. As far as I know, this is the only traveling museum in the country about Henrietta Lacks. I do know that one of my cousins on the Lacks side, she has like a small tabletop that she has. I'm not sure how much she's like traveling and different things. So, but she does have like a small tabletop. Me and Alfred, though, we are actually Deborah's son, we're partnering to write a play right now, and we're hoping to launch it hopefully late summer in Chicago. And the plan is to have the script available, so where students that are like in theater on campuses, they can adopt it and do their own plays like on the college campuses. And so yeah, so this is the only one that I'm aware of. There's no physical structured building that have been made aware of that exists. She is in the Smithsonian Museum for now. But yes, that's the only one I'm aware of. Yeah.
See, there's another question down in front. Getting all my microphone runners. I'm going to do also a little housekeeping, which is Mr. Jackson has kindly said he can stick around to 1:30 so people can look at the exhibit. So I'm mostly saying that now because if anybody on Zoom was boxed out of a seat and wants to bust over here to Ben Nighthorse Campbell, you can still come by and see the exhibit. So, but please.
Good afternoon. My name's Tracy Jones, and I had a question regarding the museum question that the museum topic.
Sure.
Have there been talks, or are there going to be talks regarding this exhibit or another exhibit being in the National African American Museum in DC? And if not, who can we talk to so we can get that taken care of?
Right. Yeah. I haven't myself been like focusing on any national things right now. I've been like trying to build up things in my local community in the city of Kalamazoo. We have a Henrietta Lacks Day now in the city of Kalamazoo. It's October 4th. And so that's something that our mayor have declared for us. That same letter is going to be submitted to our governor so we can make it a holiday on the state level. And so I'm kind of starting home and then going abroad. But I can't say again, I know that again, my cousin Alfred, he's doing a lot of stuff. He's traveling more than me. And he's doing like engagements. My son did my PowerPoint for me and he forgot a couple of clips. So because my cousin Alfred also, he just did his first book, Living in the Shadows of the Immortal. So you can get that at your libraries, you can get that on Amazon or whatever those platforms are. He also just produced a perfume line. It is the Immortal line. And this perfume was made in Paris. And so he's doing a lot of stuff, and he's doing some national stuff too. He's working with a lot of organizations on cancer. He's doing a lot of stuff. So I can't speak widely for what everyone's doing. I will say that there is a newer foundation that have been established by the family. So there's some people that have worked with Rebecca, but there was a major discrepancy in the family over the book, over the movie with Oprah. So some family members are still like doing some engagements and traveling with them, and some are not. And so what I do is, family members that are closer to it, I respect their feelings. I respect those decisions on where they are, because again, this brings that emotional rage and that feeling of distrust. So much have happened. They don't, so you don't know who to trust at times. And so I try to respect everybody's feelings and emotions about all the things that they're doing. So yeah, I don't know. For me, I haven't been focused on anything outside of Michigan as of yet. So.
Back to Zoom. Okay, so this is similar, but maybe you can put an international spin on this one. So this question comes from Mario, who is a humanities professor joining us from a medical school in Brazil. He speaks about Mrs. Henrietta Lacks in his bioethics classes and wants to know from your perspective, what message would you like for him to share with his students about her legacy?
All right. Well, Henrietta Lacks is the mother of modern and future medicine. Period. Sometimes people say, like, she's one in a million, she's one in this. Well, until you find a cell as unique as her cell and that can do what her cell is able to produce, then it stands alone. And I think when you add other things to it, you take away from, what her cells have been able to produce. And so they just need to, that'll be a good start for them to know coming, they have a head start above a lot of other people that's already in the field that know no history about this story. I have a son that has sickle cell, and he's been in the hospital, hospital all of his life. And unfortunately suffered a major stroke a couple of years ago. And so he was in the hospital in near ICU for about 2 months. And while I was there, my wife will tell you just by where I go, I spent my time educating doctors and nurses. I was like, have you heard of Henrietta Lacks? They were like, Henry who? But many, when I say HeLa, say, oh yeah, I worked with HeLa cells when I was in school. And I said, oh, well, that was the cells of my great aunt, and then I just create the conversation. So I would just say, just acknowledging that's giving them a head start, that they know something that a lot of other students is going to graduate just like them and not know the story.
So I did not know about the Tuskegee and the HeLa cells as well. I would say you think with the Tuskegee experiment and the HeLa cells, did others know about that as well? Or because I think, there's still some distrust, within the African-American community. I think it's getting better. But at that time, do you think that was something that also added with the distrust within the medical field too?
Oh, well, I'm sure. Because there's thousands of stories that's untold. When we think of Sarah Bartman, who was treated like a zoo animal because of her body, and think about when she died, they were devastated that their money was gone. So they took her corpse and they made like a cast and so they can parade this image of her body around, and they took her personal parts to preserve them in jars. So this have happened with thousands of African Americans. When we're talking about a medical apartheid, it was atrocious. So it certainly was the thing that created a lot of distrust. There's people today that probably don't even go to the doctor or hospital about their own health because there's distrust. So, I'm not sure like how widespread it was during that time, but I was already fully conscious about what had happened there with the Tuskegee Airmen, where you are doing a horrible experimental on men that's walking around with syphilis, and you're telling them that you're treating them, and you're giving them stuff like water, and you're watching them die. So you use them to see what it would do to their body, and they all died. Majority of those that had that disease untreated, they died. So, and I think there's more people that know about the Tuskegee Airmen story than that know that the research happened on the same campus about Henrietta Lacks.
Okay, final Zoom. So I'm going to combine two questions because I think these are both really interesting. And I'll just put it in context. So you have a whole career outside of speaking about your family legacy and bringing this museum around the country. And for those of you who don't know, the Jacksons brought this in their luggage, very carefully packed. So if there are any investors out there that might want to invest in a museum, maybe they'd like to hear from you. So I just wanted to say 2 questions. What keeps you motivated to do this amazing work? And also, what is your biggest reward in sharing this legacy with the community?
So what keeps me motivated is that I feel that it's a sense of purpose, a sense of calling to do this. My grandmother, told me about this when I was a little kid, and she was pretty inspiring as I put this together. And I was talking to her and telling her I was going to travel this exhibit. And so, the time that I had with her, oh man, I did not know. I was sorry. So the time I had with her, I miss those times where she was able to be with me. And she even got to a place where she couldn't travel with me anymore. So my wife would set her up like on a Zoom. She would be on Zoom, or I would pull out my phone, say, Granny, talk to the people, and she would speak to the people or whatever, just to feel that she was in the room. But she's been like one of my greatest inspiration as my grandmother with this. And I think it's the right thing to do. So I get joy out of knowing that I'm educating other people about a subject that perhaps they wouldn't have heard about unless I share it. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. A round of applause for that. I'm gonna read 5 more names for books in a second, but I just want to, on behalf of everybody here and on Zoom, thank you again. I think the depth and breadth of what you've brought to share to us makes this real and meaningful, and we really can't thank you enough. So
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. Thank you.